Alrighty, aloha everyone in another level living land. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Freedom Fridays. So happy that you're here because this is actually a special Freedom Fridays. This is our 8th year in business. So we're celebrating that today. And I have a wonderful guest for you today who's going to share with us some amazing wisdom on walking our path and really stepping into our leader's journey. I want you to give Dr. Keith McNally a warm Another Level Living welcome. Dr. Keith, thanks so much for being on the show with us today.
Dr. Tucker, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a great experience, I think, for both of us.
I agree. I agree. I know that I'm going to get filled up with all the wisdom that you have to share. Before we get into it, though, let me go ahead and share with them who you are and how you serve, okay?
Sure.
So, everyone, Dr. Keith McNally is a leadership coach, and he's specializing in facilitating discussions and bringing like minded people together to create real impact. He has launched 2 podcasts in the past 2 years, the Question Guy podcast and Coach's Corner. And he is also the author of Walking the Path, a leader's journey. We have had a fascinating conversation and brought together several streams of his work focused on mental health and suicide prevention. It was dramatic and impactful, not least because of his own story of having overcome close to ending his own life. And he's also going to be able to share, he's going to make points to others that come from his own experience and his unique contribution to make to the world, and also helping people find what drives much of what he does and much of what you do. So Dr. Keith, this is just amazing. We're so happy that you're here. I know that the journey of entrepreneurship, the journey of leadership is something so profound. And for everyone who's listening, the whole goal of the Freedom Friday show is to support you as an entrepreneur in achieving your business and life harmony success. So I always bring amazing guests to you to be able to support you with strategies in doing just that. So, Dr. Keith, welcome. Welcome to our oasis today.
Thank you so much. That was a lot to say in such a short period of time. So I hope I could, add value. I got my book ready. I got me ready. Let's have a
Yay!
conversation.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So my first question for you is, tell me a little bit about your journey, your story into leadership, and why is something that's so important for us to be able to really step into as we're looking at our personal leaderships.
I do appreciate that question. So a lot of what we're seeing now in my life is a result of COVID. And so a lot of us have been impacted by COVID, and many people are still being impacted by COVID. But my transition into really being quote unquote an entrepreneur and quote unquote a leader. And I like to focus on the fact that a leader of impact, I'm not necessarily trying to scale the corporate entrepreneurial corporate ladder, whatever that is, if it's out there. I'm really having a focus on how people in their space, and I always call it in their space, are making real impact, such as yourself, on others, on their lives. And so, what does that mean? How do we go about doing it? And what's the journey to get there is really what I'm focused on. And so, like I said, it started with COVID. COVID hit us all in the face and said, "Gotta do things differently." In one way or another, people started doing things differently. They were making specific changes in their life. And I don't even know how, just kind of reaching out to people on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, do you want to have a conversation?" And slowly but surely, people were saying, "Yes, I want to have a conversation." Those people had stories to tell, and I wanted to share them. And so that's kind of how this all got started.
Oh, nice, nice. That's so awesome. Yeah, like COVID definitely put a ding in so many different things, right? And it gave us this new perspective of like how now is really the time to make whatever calling or whatever impact that we're called for and be able to express and live that calling, whatever it is, because it could be so many different things for different people. Um and so, yeah, no, that's so great. What does that have to do with leadership? What does it have to do with us being able um to step into? I always like to look at leadership like another level as we're walking in our personal leadership, like another level of um something.
So for me, it's about making connections. And I actually write that in my book, Walking the Path, A Leader's Journey. Leadership is about building trust with people, making connections, having real relationships, inspiring, motivating, and changing people's lives. And I think without that aspect of it, you're simply just a manager. You're meeting deadlines. You're making sure that people are accountable, and that has its place. But if you're not inspiring, changing, motivating, and allowing people to transition into their, and this, I know this is cliche, the best version of themselves so that they are motivated to kind of step in and say, what can I do today? What value am I adding to my world today, whether it's the people around me, my workplace, whatever that looks like. If that isn't there, then you're not really stepping into leadership. So when I started connecting with people on LinkedIn and having conversations, I said that the people were making real pivotal decisions in their life. And so I always say they could have chosen one of two things. The first thing they could have chosen is to numb the pain. Whatever that was, people had lost a lot. They had lost loved ones, houses, homes, money, whatever that looks like. Um, People lost. The other side of that coin was that people had acquired a career, a successful career, whatever that looked like to them. On the outside, it was awesome. It was great, keeping up with the Joneses. But when they were forced to look at themselves in the mirror every day during quarantine, because you weren't going anywhere, people didn't like what they saw. Or it wasn't in alignment with who they either were inside, who they knew they wanted to be, or what they wanted to become. And so, from both sides of the coin, people were making changes. And from those changes, personal changes, they were making professional changes. And so a lot of people went through hell and back. And from that transition became, or I should say, created a business model based on that transformational process and took it, like you just said, that one step further. I am successful through transition. I need to help other people become successful through their own transition. And so from that, the Question Guy podcast was birthed because those were the conversations. And then from the Question Guy Coaches Corner came to be because I started bringing people back and saying, you created a business model. We need to talk about what that impact looks like. And so out of the quarantine, out of COVID, I've got two podcasts. I've got two different types of conversations.
So good. So good. Because, as you were talking, I was thinking about how like leadership is really not leadership, but entrepreneurship and business building. It really is an extension that we are. So how we go is how the business goes, which is one of the reasons why there is that next level, like you're the leader of your business. Not only that, the impact that the business makes. What are some of the maybe tips or strategies that we can be able to leverage or start using to be able to step into our next level of leadership from your perspective?
Well, I've got an opinion just like everybody else. So let's
Yes,
see
I
if it
want to
sits
hear.
well with your audience. I think a lot of people say in order to lead others, you got to lead yourself. I've heard that cliche 1,000 times. Um, let's take that one step further.
Okay.
If you're going to lead yourself, you've got to become honest with yourself. And then in order to become honest with yourself, you have to become vulnerable with yourself. And vulnerability is not a place many people like to go because it uncovers a lot of things that are uncomfortable with who they are. And so they may have weaknesses in one area or another, whether it be managing monies or whatever that looks like. And so there's always a weakness, or maybe it even is having a conversation. As easy as that sounds, many people don't know how to have it unless they've got, a script in front of them. They can't really sit with somebody, be present in the moment, and really engage in thought-provoking conversation. That's a skill, but it's a skill that you got to develop. And if you don't have it, you shy away from it because it's uncomfortable. It's vulnerability. So for your listening audience, entrepreneurship, leadership requires you to step into your own vulnerability, your own struggles, and tackle them. Because if you don't, they're going to be the hindering blocks. They're going to be the stumbling blocks that's going to prevent you from stepping into your fullness, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, that was so good and so true. Like that totally makes sense. I mean, to me, I'm sure it makes sense to them because, a lot of times it's like having our voice and expressing what the transformation is. But like sometimes there's even things from that maybe people have too difficulty of sharing with their expressions, like things that have happened that maybe they're overcome or overcoming, where someone else needs to hear it, right? Someone else needs to hear it. So therefore they can get inspired to move to their next level. But if there's not this ability to share it, ability to express it, then two things can happen, right? Like the little pebbles that create that resistance become big mountains. And it's like, oh my gosh, do we want to deal with it when it's a big mountain, or do we want to deal with it when it's a little pebble, right? And sometimes it can even be so subtle, like things that we don't even think about could come into our own. So I love that part where you're talking about really being able to get honest and get vulnerable with yourself. It's like we can stay in our comfort zone, right? But entrepreneurship kind of kicks us out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, you ain't staying there.
But on the other side, right? On the other side of actually I don't call it this. I've Bob Proctor is where I heard it from. On the other side of this terror barrier is the freedom that we go into
Yeah,
entrepreneurship that we seek,
yeah.
right? Wow, so good. So what else? What else can we do? I mean, I'm just ready for another. What else can we do to be able to step into that next level of leadership from your perspective?
So from the book, Walking the Path, you've got to know that it's not a, there's no panacea, there's no cure-all, there's no light switch that you're going to turn on and off that's going to say, one day I'm here, one day I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a leader, or I'm a whatever. The path is the path. We've had stories behind the camera and, not recorded, and you had a path to take. I had a path to take. My first conversation, recorded or not, even though I'm a college professor, having intimate one-on-one in-present conversations isn't an easy thing to do because you have to not only communicate a message clearly, you have to listen and respond appropriately to what somebody else is saying. And so if you're only thinking about what you're saying or what you want to say in that conversation, you're not really having a conversation because you're not present. You're not allowing somebody to share, to become intimate, to become, this is who I am. Because that's what conversations are all about. This is who I am. This is my value to this moment. And if you're not allowing somebody to add value to that moment, you're not going to develop the things that you need to develop as an entrepreneur, as a leader. You're not going to become, trustworthy. You're not going to be able to establish relationships. And you're most definitely are not going to be able to have long-standing ability to influence others because they know you're not listening to them. And if they know that you're not listening to them, they're walking away. And so those conversations, being present in the moment are most critical for any entrepreneur and for any leader who wants to step in and enhance their role in that space.
It's so good. The presence is one of the things that I usually hear. Well, not, the listening, needing to be able to have more deep, active listening, and also wanting to be more present, whether it's when they're with their family or when they're with in their business. Like it can be where, okay, I'm focusing on family, but yet I'm thinking about my business, right?
Right.
Or I'm here in my business and I'm thinking about what's going on with my family, right? What is maybe some of your thoughts on how that we can become more present? I know you talked about the vulnerability, the honesty. Is there another part to be able to kick it up a notch? So therefore we can be able to really have those deep level conversations.
Well, let's consider that. A lot of that comes from your values. And so values typically drive behavior because you're trying to achieve something that's in alignment with yourself. And so if you value your business, then you're going to give it its time. If you value, sending emails, making connections, whatever that looks like, balancing the budget, you can invest your time in that. You talk about having this kind of balance, and it's really not a balance of one over the other or between two things, because we all know holistically life is about many, many things. Life is money, life is relationships, life is, the home roof over my head. So we're going to invest the time equilaterally. But the thing is, how do we know how much time to invest and when to invest it?
Mm.
That only comes with practice. If I'm going to invest in a relationship with somebody, I have to make that time, whether intimate or, professional or whatever that looks like. I need to give it that time. When I want to grow my business, just like you and everybody else who's listening to your call, I got to invest that time. So what do I need to do today? And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
When this is gonna take us way back.
Okay.
So I was actually in college some time ago. But I'm talking
Last
about
year?
my
No, I'm just kidding.
my last year. So way back when I was becoming a social worker. So I've got 3 different degrees: social work, computer information systems, and of course I'm a doctor of education. When I was in my undergraduate studies, my mentor and before that I was a Marine. So there's lots of different careers here. My mentor in college said, what's the best, so the question is, what's the best use of your time right now? If
Mm.
you've got that as a focal point, how am I using my time right now? What's the best use of it? What do I need to get done right now? And then how strategically, I know as an entrepreneur, we think strategically. So how is that action, activity, presence getting me to my goal? And then from that, as I talked about in my book, how is that all aligned through my values? Because again, your values are going to drive you. Your cognitive thinking is going to say, what do I need to do? Right. And then your targets out here, that's where you're going to pull all of your energies to get there. And so those 3 things together are really going to help your audience, those who are looking to become successful as entrepreneurs, and even impact leaders, which is what I coach on and what I'm all about, is going to help them get to what they want to achieve.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. It's like you're speaking our language here in another level living because we talk about, right? Like, okay, how do we get results? And we get results based on our actions. And our actions are based on our emotions, our feelings about it. And our thoughts our and feelings are based on our thoughts. And underneath the thoughts are our programming, our beliefs, our values. So when we kind of change and operate from that perspective, then we get results faster. Then we're actually able to make those connections, or the right connections just show up, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there lies a beauty in, really, you kind of highlighted this part about the biggest and best way to make an impact and influence on other people is to really by stepping in and owning your leadership and investing in yourself and recognizing, where you can come from this authentic place. So therefore you can be more present, have that clarity, have the communication and the connections that are needed to move life and business along. right? Because you
Yeah.
said it's all these parts, they all come together, they all play. And so I like the word harmony a little bit more than balance, but
And that's what I think it is, because we think of balance as a scale between two different things. It's really a mixture of everything. I've got a daughter, I've got a house, I've got a job, I've got, podcasts. So I can't balance all of those things. They all have to work in harmony with one another. And everybody, including myself, has to know there's our space in that environment, that puzzle.
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. So, one of the things I want y'all to put in the chat, put like, what is your biggest takeaway, your biggest nugget of some of the things that he shared that kind of spoke to you today? And for you, Dr. Keith, tell us what would be like the one biggest takeaway that you would want to leave us with on this journey.
So can I leave two?
Yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
One, don't be afraid. This is all about stepping over that stumbling block called fear. Fear prevents us from doing pretty much everything. And so for example, real quick, my intention is to hike the Appalachian Trail. I'm on a campaign to raise $1 million to prevent suicide and for helping those who have been affected by suicide,
Yeah.
right? And so part of that, my fear is I'm afraid of the dark. Don't tell anybody. I'm
Okay.
afraid of the dark. But I know when I'm crossing over the Appalachian Trail, which is 14 states, eastern side of, the contiguous states in America, 2,200 miles. At nighttime, it's going to get really dark, and there ain't no streetlights up in the mountains. And so I've got to go. I've got a trail behind me through the forest, through a wooded area, but I have to walk every day. And my practice to get over the fear of being in the dark is literally to walk it with, I carry a flashlight in case anything, happens, but I turn it off for most of my trek, which is now like 9, 10 miles a day, so that I can overcome that fear of the dark. And, what am I hearing? I'm hearing leaves, rustle next to me, and there's deer in the area, and there's owls hooting at night. And so all of these things for somebody who has that fear, I've got to overcome. And then the next thing you've got to work on is really being honest and vulnerable with yourself. You've really got to, and don't do it all at once. Meaning, don't say, "Oh, I can't do all of these things. I'm just going to open up and say, no, 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 that's not how you do it. Because you got to tackle them. You've got to overcome them. So each vulnerability, each weakness, you've got to own up to. But then you've got to find people like you, the coaches, the mentors, the cheerleaders, those people who can help you and say, "Hey, let's work on this. Let's not make this a stumbling block. Let's make this a cornerstone of your success." So you've got to overcome your fear. You've got to overcome your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, and that's what's going to cause you to be successful as an entrepreneur and as a leader.
So good. As you were talking, I was thinking about this quote. I think it was from Robert Campbell. He said, and I actually put it on Facebook because it was just so profound. The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek, right?
Probably so.
So, what's the cave? What's the treasure? What's the fear? And feeling that fear and doing it anyway. That's exactly what you're doing. So, therefore, we can get to that freedom and success. So
Yep.
grateful. So how can we be able to first of all, get your book? Where can we get your book? And
Amazon, please, and leave a review, please.
okay, everyone get their book from Amazon. I'll put it in the show note links as well. And then how can we stay connected to you? Like, what is it that you can be able to offer us? So therefore our audience can be able to get to know you better.
Well, everybody in your audience who wants to connect with me, please do so on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn faithfully until they kick me off, but I am there faithfully most every day except for like Saturdays. Um, Connect, follow. I'm still trying to reach my 30,000, connection mark and then keep on going. But I say that to say, I've got 3 shows. I've got the Question Guy podcast, which is about your personal story, your transformation story. Coach's Corner, which is about what you do, business wise, your profession, whatever that is. Unless you're a C-suite, I don't want to talk with you. I'm not trying to be mean to y'all if you're a C-suite. I'm just saying you're not the impact player. The impact player is like you and me going out there and making things happen. And then finally, the Envision Speaker Series, which is about those impact conversations. And that's a new podcast that just started in July of
Oh my
this
gosh.
calendar year.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll also put your link to your LinkedIn as well as your link to your YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to his share, and subscribe to his YouTube channel because he has amazing messages there for you. And everyone who's listening, Another Level Living Land, have an amazing rest of the Freedom Friday. Let this message that we've talked about today soak into your spirit. What is it that you want to be able to take away, to learn, and marinate it on all weekend and beyond, right? So therefore you can step fully into your leadership unapologetically, joyfully, and happily, and making the impact and influence that you're already called to make, and receiving all that you're called to receive in the meantime, or as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon. And thanks so much, Dr. Keith, for blessing our stage today with your wisdom.
Dr. Tucker, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. Bye, everyone.